Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Mike Colleen at MikeColleen.com. So this video is going to be kind of a random video. It's something I want to share with you, which I think will give you a sense of direction, peace, and understanding inside. So one thing I want to say, and I want to say it like this, but this is really not what it is. I'm going to say it like this, though, and then I'm going to shift to the next way of saying it. So on an unconscious level, we have needs that need to be satisfied or complete. And this is on every level. This is not just sexual. It's a lot more. It's meaningful, it's emotional, it's on every level. And there's a couple of things in life that had brought me to this understanding of this much larger pattern. And when you could start looking at life in this way, you're going to start realizing that there are innate patterns that are locked inside of us. And this is what I really mean, the second part. They're locked inside our DNA. It really is not unconscious. Is it out of our consciousness? Sure. Can you call that unconscious? Sure. But what I'm talking about is something or a series of things that are locked inside our DNA, literally. And these needs need to be met in order to feel like you lived a life worthwhile. Like you're living a purposeful life that has meaning in the moment, that motivates you and inspires you and makes you want to move forward, makes you want to get things done and take action and live. So you could talk about, like in psychology, you learn about Maslow's hierarchy of ideas, and I'm sure that has a lot to do with what I'm saying, but I think it's separate, but I think it's the DNA that Maslow was talking about without even mentioning the DNA. So one of the things with Maslow's hierarchy of ideas was, being able to make as much money as you want, live the life you want, create a life worth living, having a meaningful work, and it's like, I want to use this word, but if you get stuck on this, you're really missing out on life, and this word is independent. Now, independence really is just a next level. So you go from, let's say, dependence to independence. There's a book, I can't think about it right now. It's over on my shelf. I can't see it right now, but if the name comes to me, I think it's called The E-Myth Revealed. But the real level you want to get to, so you got dependence and you want to break free from that, and then you want to go to independence, and then you want to go to interdependence. Now that's a healthy adult. It's when you can work with other adults with also see, you can't do this with people that are dependent. See, people that are on the dependent level, those are narcissists. They are dependent on your energy. They are dependent on your life force, sucking the life force energy out of you, feeding off of you, getting you to do things for them, beating you down to where you're stuck and you can't leave. In other words, they take away your independence. So I would be really careful around people that are dependent people, because they will suck the life out of you, they'll bring you down, they'll beat you down. So what you really want to do is you want to get with people. See, the next level is independence. You're like, yeah, because a lot of people think, well, that's the goal. No, it's not, because now you're separate. It's almost like dependence is almost in a way better, because you're working with other people. Where independence, like, oh, it's me, mine. You're like all by yourself doing your thing, and that's fine. But you gain much more power when you develop the ability to work with other people without trying to control them. And vice versa. It's a very supportive, thriving environment where everybody thrives. Okay, I'm going to make the music go down in about 20 seconds, a little bit more. So I already made it go down once. So it's going to go down one more time. Okay, so now we're going to shift gears, but not to leave this thought of DNA. In fact, it's going to come back into it. So, all right. We all heard about past lives, right? Past lifetimes. Whether you believe it or not, I don't care. Believe it or not, it's actually in the Bible. I think there's two examples. One was the guy that walked up to heaven. I think it was Jacob or Jacob's ladder, whatever it was. And then the other one, I just drew a blank. It might have been John the Baptist, but I don't know if that's who it was. So I'm not gonna. It's okay. Do not look at this in right or wrong. I want to help you understand something. So I was trained in something called timeline therapy. I'm a master practitioner. Did years and years of training. I've been doing it for I think 30 plus years now. And I didn't believe in past lives, and yet I would do it with my clients. And I just thought, if they believe in it, that's fine. And this is one thing Dr. Tad James says, because the lady goes, well, is it real? He goes, does it matter? And she goes, what do you mean? He goes, if they have a lifelong issue, a phobia, a fear, something that's been really causing a lot of problems, and they go to a past life, even if it's not real, but they believe it is, and that's what heals them, is that all right? And she goes, well, yeah, of course. All right, so here's what happened. A couple times, I'm going to make it real brief because I've said this in the past, but I kind of want to get to the point here. So I had a couple clients come over, and two of them were Christians and absolutely did not believe in past lives. And it's, I won't have them because I don't believe it. And what happened was, both of them, this was months apart, separate, they didn't even know each other, but both of them had an astounding experience, like, oh my God, I have a past life. One of them was like, I have a bunch of them that keep going further back. I'm like, what? Now their eyes are closed. They're doing this visualization technique I'm teaching them. I'm like, are you serious? They're like, yeah. I go, I thought you didn't believe it. Well, I don't believe it. And that was the second one that said they had a series of lives, many of them, when I started to believe. But there was something else that made me believe. And this is a scientific thing that helped me to understand it. It also helped me understand energy healing a lot better too. So I went to my energy healer. This was many years ago. I used to go to her a lot. And I had seen it for, she got a dog eventually when it was a little puppy. And I met it when it was a little puppy, a real cute little thing. And it was one of those Sheltie dogs, right? And the kind that herd sheepdog. Not the guard dogs, but the smaller ones, about 40 pounds. And they kind of run around and bark at the dog and kind of nip at their heels to scare them to go in a certain direction. Now, I think at this point, it was about 7 or 8 years, maybe more, that I'd been going almost, I would say, every other week or weekly for literally 6, 7, 8 years. And the dog would bark and bark and bark, and it was an aggressive bark, and it was intimidating. And you felt like it was going to bite your calf or your Achilles tendon. And so right when you go into the room, there's like a table, a massage table that you lay down on. Now, she doesn't do massage, but you just like relax, sometimes fall asleep. And the minute I got on there, the dog would stop barking. And I remember walking, I go, when is this dog going to realize who I am? She goes, oh no, Michael, she knows who you are. I'm like, she acts like this is my first time here. So I lay down on the table and boom, the dog instantly stops barking. And I remember I let my arm kind of hang over the edge and the dog started licking my hand. And she goes, see, she likes you. She knows who you are. And I was like, oh, okay. And the dog completely calmed down. So we're doing the session. She's doing this energy healing, blah, blah, blah. And my energy's expanding open. And I got this huge aha moment. I was like, oh, your dog is a sheep herder dog. It was raised to herd sheep. So it did that for a while. And she goes, Michael, this dog's never seen a sheep in its life. You met it when it was a puppy. And I was like, oh, that's right. I go, well, then it must have been around the mom, and the mom probably did this around it when it was a puppy. She's like, no, the mom was also born here in the city too, in San Francisco. She goes, the mom has never seen a farm, let alone a sheep. I was like, huh, okay. And I kind of zoned out again. And then it dawned on me. Now I had gone through biology class and science classes in college, etc., etc. And I remember them talking about how the DNA passes through the genome, or I'm just throwing big words out there because they were big words to me, and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, that's right. So once you breed a certain type of dog to do a certain thing, once it gets locked into the DNA, it's there, and it doesn't just leave just because one or two generations didn't, hunt birds or herd sheep. Like it doesn't. In other words, it's there for quite a while. And so I started realizing, like, oh, this is what they mean by past lives. You literally carry the emotions of your mother and your father and even your grandparents and even their parents down through the DNA, down inside your system. You're literally born with certain emotions and certain energies and stuff like that. So you could have a kid that's adopted, or maybe the father died before it was born, or the mother died before it's born, and yet that child absolutely has the traits and characteristics of that parent. Or it could be adopted and never ever met their parents, and adopted at birth or at a very early age, and yet they're like, wow, you're just like your dad, or you're just like your mom. And so it wasn't learned. It was like a baby turtle. It's instinctual. It's in the DNA. They were born instinctually knowing what to do when they hatch from the egg. So being suicidal, suffering from depression. Another one is actually dealing with narcissists. See, a lot of you, in fact, some people recently in the last couple of videos have said, it's funny, but I ended up dating someone that was just like my mom or my dad, or I got married to someone that was exact same characteristic. I'm like, well, yeah, because it's in your DNA. Part of it could be just the feeling, the emotion of being oppressed or being pulled down, and so when we get around people, if their energy and the energy exchange between us does not align with what we already have inside, we just kind of like, not interested, and you fade off to the next person, and then boom, you find that one abuser, that one person that's narcissistic. They beat people down. They just have this look in their eyes, and it's an energetic feeling that you get. And so this is what can cause you to be drawn towards people that do trauma bonding. So I know a lot of you guys listen to other videos about narcissist abuse, and you hear about you're the generational curse breaker. So when you finally snap out of it and you just like, no more, I'm done, never again, and you literally go into isolation, you put up what I call the Great Wall of China. You just have like unbelievably thick boundaries. You don't open up to anyone. You refuse, and you do it for 2, 3, 4 years, maybe even a little bit more. What you're doing is you are breaking that trauma bond. You are breaking that generational curse that's been passed down through DNA and DNA and DNA and DNA. Which is the same thing as saying generation after generation after generation. Now, can you heal this stuff? Absolutely. Energy healing and timeline therapy absolutely can shift you. Now let's go back to the part where I said we have like different levels of needs that need to be fulfilled. Okay, now watch this. A lot of you assumed I meant like sexual pleasure or financial needs, or accomplishment needs, or creative, artistic, musical needs that may need to be fulfilled and met until you can be content and live a meaningful, fulfilling life. And all of those are all DNA needs that need to be met. That's why some people are very musical, and some people, they have no need for that. They don't really care. So that's not what I'm talking about. That's part of it. There's, A, B, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm also talking about these needs, just like that little dog that, okay, I didn't finish it. So her dog was literally herding me into that room. And that's why it would bark and almost nip at my feet. And at some point it would take its nose and muzzle and kind of nudge me forward, just like it would do to the sheep. It literally couldn't help it. It's literally locked into its DNA. Just like when you approach someone who's not good for you, and yet This is your 5th long-term relationship, the 10th person you've dated. And all your friends are like, wow, another one. You know, like after 6 months, they kind of revealed themselves. So it's like you had this need to be in a certain, it's like, because it's familiar. And I made a video about familiarity, like where this therapist was telling me, like, you know, Michael, has there ever been a time in your life, in your family's life, when all the bills were paid, money was caught up, you had your mother had a savings, and she had a really good job and was making good money, and nobody was hurt, nobody was sick, everyone got good grades? I'm like, well, yeah, of course there were times like that. And she goes, well, what would happen? I'm like, I don't know. And she goes, no, Michael, just remember back to those times. Like, what literally would happen each and every time? There was peace. And I went, oh, she would cause chaos and drama, and she would do something ridiculous or make something up or accuse someone who did nothing. And it really wasn't, I'm not trying to say she's bad, but it was just locked into her system to where, like, peace was terrifying to her. So I said she would cause problems, and the next thing would be yelling and screaming, and someone's getting beat with a leather belt or whatever. And this would go on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it wouldn't end. And she's like, yeah. And I go, but why? She goes, well, because even though your mother wants the bills to be paid and money and savings, you know, and everything going good, she's not comfortable in that because it's not familiar to her. She feels kind of lost. She feels, it doesn't work for her. It's not familiar. And she goes, but chaos is, because even though she doesn't like chaos, she doesn't like worrying about the bills or worrying about getting the car fixed or worrying about so-and-so getting in trouble at school. She knows how to deal with it. She has a series of strategies, unconscious strategies that, she knows how to deal with it. So she feels like she's in her circle of influence. Now, I talked about circle of influence about, 5-10 videos ago. And she's comfortable. It's her comfort zone. So you guys have essentially been breaking these curses. You've been breaking out of these generational curses. Now, there's another piece to this. There's actually a lot of pieces, but these are some of the main ones that my brain finally clicked. I was at a club, and I remember there's this guy he approached me on the dance floor when I was with this girl. We were dancing, we were talking, and he's, hey man, can I buy you a drink? And I'm like, no, like, who the F is this? This is weird. So he's standing out in the middle of the dance floor trying to talk to me. I'm with this girl, and this girl goes, do you know this guy? I'm like, I have no idea who this person is, in my life. And he kept trying. I go, dude, can you see that I'm busy here? And like, he just didn't get it. And I had to be real firm and say, hey man, leave us alone. And so he kind of walked like, oh shit. And so he ended up approaching me again. I said, hey dude, you're weird, get away from me. And then I went there a week later and he approached me. I go, dude, get away. And then he came up to me and says, hey man, I want you to meet my uncle. For some reason this intrigued me. I'm like, really? I was like, okay. So we walked to the back bar, the back area, the back mini dance floor, whatever. And he was there with about 2 or 3 people talking. And then we walked up and he goes, hey uncle, I want you to meet this guy. And he introduced us. I was like, oh yeah, I know you. And I actually knew the guy quite well, actually. And I said, oh yeah, I've known your uncle for quite a while now, like 6 months or whatever. And here's the weird thing. Out of nowhere, the uncle goes, get the fuck away from me, or some like Italian thing, And he's like, get the F away. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, now, this was when I was benching 365. I was training in kickboxing and wrestling at the same time. I was a beast. And I looked at this dude. Now, this guy was 50-some years old. He was not on the incline. He was on the decline of life. And this was my club, meaning that, like, I know it sounds arrogant, but literally, like, I was the guy. Like, everyone knew me, all the bouncers, even the bartender behind said, hey, man, why don't you back off? That's the love doctrine. He kind of looked at the guy like, what? I go, dude, don't worry about it. I just walked into the other room like, whatever. And the kid followed me. And he goes, no. And I go, dude, get the F away from me. I go, you're weird. Your uncle's a fucking weirdo with a dickhead. I actually cussed. And he's, no. He goes, you don't understand. He goes, that's just the way it is. Now, something inside me came up, okay? And it connects with all of this. And I said, oh, that's just the way it is. Well, let me tell you something with me. I knock people the F out. That's just the way it is. And if you don't like it, that's going to be too fucking bad. So I'm just like really pissed off at this kid. I'm really pissed off at his uncle. And I go, dude, get the F. He goes, no. He goes, you don't understand. That's just the way we are. And he goes, the way who are? He goes, Italians. I go, what? Because I'm Italian. I go, what are you talking about? And then he started saying that that's just kind of the way we are. We're kind of assholes to each other. We're assholes to people. You know, and I go, that's a really effed up freaking system. And I literally said, I go, that sounds exactly like my family. Blah, 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 blah. And as I was telling this, I was like, huh. I was seeing something for the first time in my life. It was in our DNA. For some reason, it's like it was in me, but I never did it on a public social level. I was never mean to people for no reason. You know, like people would really, really, really have to push me for me to do anything at all. But it was in me. Now, one thing I don't think I've ever told anyone, and it's kind of a big deal, but I come from the line of the DeSando clan of San Jose. That's the Italian mafia that used to run the San Jose or greater San Jose area. Sorry, I had to cough there. And so essentially the way it worked was my grandma was the first one to move away, and she did not marry an Italian, and it was kind of a big deal. Like, you know, you marry within the race, you know, like that kind of thing, or else. And so she was the DeSando. And so now I didn't know this at all until I think I was about 5 or 6 years old, or probably a little bit younger than that, maybe 4. And essentially what happened was one day we were suddenly going to go down to that area because her twin sister was dying of cancer. And we're like, twin sister, what are you talking about? I thought grandma didn't have any family, right? Because back then you didn't have internet and all that stuff. And she changed her name. That way they couldn't look her up. So essentially she was on the lam. She was hiding. So she kept in touch with her stepsister, and that was the only person that had her number and knew about her. So she was dying, and we all went down. I remember they didn't tell us anything other than, yeah, her not stepsister, her twin sister is dying. And I'm thinking, grandma's got a twin sister, and we're like, what the hell? And like, who are these people? Like, well, you're gonna meet your cousins. And I'm like, cousins? What cousins? So I remember my dad had a gun, my mom had a gun, and my uncles, they all packed guns too. And I was, we're getting in the station wagon, and they're getting in their vans and stuff. And we're like, and it was really quiet. It was a really intense thing. And it was because they were afraid of what might happen when we went down there. So we went down there, and they were all forgiving and loving and welcoming. And essentially, when we came back to California many years later, we got to meet my cousin Eric and his mom and all that stuff too. So it was kind of a good thing, I guess. So fast forward to the club where this kid and his uncle, he's Italian, he was leaning up against the bar. He kind of had that accent, talking like this or something like that, maybe not like that, but whatever. And he had the suit on, the whole 9 yards, and I just thought, God, this guy's just like a throwback from like the 50s, right? So this kid says, that's just the way we are. We're Italian. And something in my head just rang. I thought, wow, my family's abusive like that too. I can't remember, but I think it was not Robert De Niro, but the other guy. It was Al Pacino. Robert De Niro might have been the cop in this movie. I'm not sure if that was that movie, but Al Pacino was in this movie where they weren't made men. They've been, doing what the bosses say, and they treat them like shit. So if you're not a made man, the made people just treat you like shit. It's fucking horrible. It's awful. And all this stuff is kind of coming back to me from the movie and all the movies I've seen over the years. And then when he became made, everyone had to respect him. So all of a sudden, all these memories come rushing back. I'm like, wow, my family's exactly like that. Even though I never knew about the DeSandos. I never knew about my grandma's relatives or the other side, or not the other side, our side, but the side that she left, I guess you could say. I didn't know anything about this, and yet all of my family, from uncles, aunts, brothers, cousins, everybody is like this. It's like everybody's beating everyone down for zero reason. Just like in the movie, like where Al Pacino, like once he got made, they couldn't beat him down anymore. But before that, and that's one of the biggest parts of the movie, how he's always bitching and going, God, I can't stand this. I'm so sick and tired of this. And the one guy, hey man, you can't talk like that, or you're gonna get your ass killed, or they're gonna kick you out, and you're not gonna have a chance to be made, or something like this. I know. But as all these memories were flashing back, I'm like, wow, that's exactly how my family is. Just like the movie, and yet none of us, not a single one of us, knew anything about this mafia family. Just like the dog, it was never raised, never even saw a sheep in its life, and yet it couldn't help but herd. In fact, my energy healer had told me, she goes, yeah, when I take my kid, her kid at the time was, I think, in kindergarten. She goes, yeah, when I take the kid to school, the dog will take 20 or 30 kids and like literally nudge them and put them in a circle, and they all giggle and laugh. I go, they giggle? Does it bark like that? She says, oh yeah. I go, they're not afraid. She goes, no, they know it's just being playful. Trust me, it does not seem playful when it's doing it. It's freaking scary. So essentially, you guys are the curse breakers of what they call generational curse breakers. You have, okay, let's take me. Somehow you knew that this was just not right. There was something not right here. It was the same thing with me. It was like, when I grew up, I had this urge to fight. Like, I really liked fighting, but I didn't like to beat people up, and I didn't like to hurt people. But as long as I did it in football or kickboxing or boxing or wrestling, I got the energy out that way. But socially, like, even though my brothers would punch me and kick me and just do the most horrendous things, I just would not hit them back. So one thing that we learn about narcissist abuse is to get away from that. It's like, I call it walk and block. Put up the Great Wall of China to them, right? But there may be times when you really need to bark at these people, because essentially they are literally in their DNA animalistic nature. And animals only understand a certain way of life. Like if you let them walk all over you, punch you, kick you, hurt you, yell at you, scream at you, beat you down, then they're just going to keep doing it until you stand up and say, no more. You have to understand they are not in their human nature. In fact, they probably have a really hard time accessing that. In fact, they probably never do. It's just like you, in your DNA needs that need to be met. You kept approaching people or opening up to people that were narcissists, people that were abusive, people that were mean, just like your brother, like your mother, like your father. Every boyfriend, every girlfriend ended up being this freaking wicked, vicious person. But the difference is, you didn't attack people. You didn't become this mean, bitter person, or even just an animalistic person that just fought back. And that was the one thing as a child growing up, or even as a young adult. It's like, no, that's not right. And it wasn't even like, oh, I'm better than them. And this is why they think what do you think, you're better than us? And that's the thing, you're not. You just know that it's not right. You're like, no, this is not right. That's why you are the generational curse breaker. And when you finally walked away, said no more, put up the Great Wall of China, you literally broke the curse. You're like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not even going to see, this is the second part of breaking the curse. You're like, no, I'm not even going to let people abuse me anymore. This is not right. And this is really a spiritual thing to do, because you're literally saying no to everything that's literally in your fiber, in your soul, in your DNA. And you're like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. Because even allowing them to beat you down versus, just blatantly attacking people and pushing people around, like, you said no to that early on as a child. But the second part is like, no, because it continues the cycle. Because it's just like in that movie, or like in the Italian mafia, until you're made, well, people treat you like shit, and they continue to treat you like shit. So you're allowing that cycle to continue. It's like spokes in a wheel. Well, you're 10 of those spokes, and you say, no, we're leaving this wheel. We're not going to be a part of this. And all of a sudden, the wheel breaks down, and it can't function anymore. Because you left. You said, no, this is not okay. You fought against every urge, every DNA, every molecule in your body that wanted to do something that you knew was not right. There's something wasn't right about this system. You broke the wheel. What you did and for how long you did it is nobility. That's noble. So not only did you help yourself, but you threw them, literally it's like spokes in a wheel, like you pulled your 10 spokes out. Well, that front wheel collapsed and they flipped head over heel, flying all over the place, slamming on the ground, getting hurt. And that's what happens when the black sheep, I call it the white sheep of the family, leaves, because now the function can't function anymore, because that narcissistic cycle does not work without you. It causes an entire narcissistic injury to all of them. It's like because nobody wants to be at the bottom like you. Everyone's fighting, and it causes the whole system to fall apart. It also causes them to look deeper for the first time in their entire lives, repeatedly over and over, like this isn't working, this isn't working. So they start searching for answers. Because they have major narcissistic injuries, they have a complete collapse, the whole system collapse, their own system inside their body, their brain, the way they used to function, and their strategies they used to use doesn't work without you. Many times businesses, families, groups, churches will completely fall apart when the scapegoat or the black sheep of the family or group walks away. They completely fall apart, and they break up, and it doesn't exist anymore. Which forces them to start reevaluating, how do I deal with people? Like, how do I do this? And I'm not saying this happens overnight. This may end up being the rest of their life, relearning how to deal with people. So congratulations on what you did. It was tough, it was hard. On both parts. The first part as a child, like, no, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to be mean, I'm not going to do the mean things. And then the second part, when you walked away, you are just like the, what do they call them, the mother of dragons, the queen of dragons, that one TV show, Queen Daenerys, what do they call her? You are the breaker of the wheel. You broke the wheel. It is not a coincidence that TV series came out while this was all going down. The wheel had to be broken. It's being broken on a governmental level around the world and on a family level around the world for the last 6, 7, 8 years. So this is why everything's been so chaotic around the world, in families, friends, schools, everything. Is because the narcissists are fighting they're trying to hold on to. It's too late. The wheel's broken. We've taken our spokes. The wheel's collapsed. It's already over. They're trying to fix it and put it back. They can't. It's too late. People are done. God bless you guys, and congratulations for doing a great job. Hey, this is Mike Colleen at MikeColleen.com. If you need coaching, get a hold of me. Please click subscribe, click the like button, make a comment, and as always, you can leave a donation right there in the description box. There is a PayPal link. Alright guys, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.